We from the Student Solidarity Group Against Fee Hike gathered here today to address matters of utmost importance to the student community and the welfare of Nigerian students at large as it concerns higher education in Nigeria. As you may be aware, that the resounding voices of students have echoed continuously over the past 3 months, calling for a reversal of the recent fee hike from the University of Lagos, University of Jos, University of Abuja, Obafemi Awolowo University, several universities and other higher institutions of learning in Nigeria. So this has resulted in passionate protests that have not gone unnoticed. One of the results of this was the tokenist reduction implemented by the lag management, a paltry and unscientific reduction that has been vehemently opposed by the Students' Solidarity Group, fundamentally due to the undemocratic nature that was employed in the decision-making process. The errors committed by the Professor Folashade Ogunshola-led management have continued to haunt the administration, and the lapses are becoming exposed even to the world. It's a shame that simple problems do not find solutions even in the hands of supposedly revered academics. We have been the vanguard of the struggle that has continued to champion the rights of students, as this is evident in our press statements and other forms of mass actions, such as the ongoing referendum being conducted by the task force set up by this group with the mandates of the students. It is also important to state that all the victories and concessions that we have recorded thus far, and most especially the reduction and the promise to restore the University of Lagos Students' Union, were not out of any benevolence of the management. They are products of intense struggle by the students, the media, and concerned Nigerians. We want to make you understand that the struggle is far from ending, and that is why we are here today. We believe it is imperative to engage in meaningful dialogue to understand some of our lingering concerns and explore potential solutions. It is to this effect that we have called this press conference to bring the attention of the members of the public to some of the recent developments in this struggle, as we remain committed to fighting for a democratic and fair resolution that upholds the values of accessible and affordable education. Now, to the state of the struggle. So, in line with the principles of democracy, we have conducted a referendum on the reduction, and we'll be releasing the results in the coming days, as resumption is by the corner. A teaser into it is that a large number of our students are on the verge of dropping out of school, as they can still not afford the reduced fees and the palliatives announced by the management. These palliatives are inadequate, and this is a singular fact that even the management themselves, they know. From the Adopt and Accommodate program to the instrumental payments, it is evident that a country where parents are forced to take home a minimum wage of 30,000 naira, such a country has no business hiking fees by over 600%. So either you adopt an accommodate or you ask these people to pay by installments. They cannot even afford the first installment. And that is what even the result of our referendum has shown to us. We'll be sharing this with members of the public. So whatever the school, that's the University of Lagos in particular, has in its coffers today, was because students were forced to borrow money, beg online. It is now a common thing to find students, University of Lagos students online, carrying placards, begging for money, asking people to help them with their school fees, or you meet them even on the road, begging just because they want to study. So these are the things that students have been doing, menial jobs, so that they can ballot for the overpriced bed spaces that we have today. So we have concerns, and they are very disturbing ones at that. One of such concern is the inadequate measures put in place to cater for indigent students, as promised by the Vice Chancellor. These are half measures that have not translated into concrete and workable actions in the wake of the ever looming resumption stated for October 30th. We have sent in some names of indigent students to fulfill all righteousness, but we are yet to hear from the management. The list we have keeps growing by the day. These students already have been shut out of accommodation on campus, which is actually their last resort, since they can't afford off-campus hostels. The burden of accommodation is now added to the burden of hiked fees. These students cannot breathe. To add to the complaints around maladministration is to say that the process of securing students' accommodation remains riddled with inefficiencies and a lack of transparency. It is disheartening to note that even with the recent fee hike, the school management has been unwilling to provide a smoother and more inclusive accommodation process for the students. So as we approach the commencement of academic activities in just 4 days, that if nothing changes, this inefficiency leaves many students in a state of uncertainty, which is unacceptable by us. It would interest you to know that the management still has a case of extortion to answer. They will have to explain to the world where 390,000 naira extra charges, the accounts that money goes to. You could recall that we busted that particular issue where students were asked to bring 525,000 naira for a particular hostel, show them in the hall. What the management announced to the world is 145,000 naira, but you will pay 525,000. So the 390,000 naira goes to another account that is so unclear to anybody today. And we forced them actually to shut down that racketeering. And we won't allow that to slide. We want to assure everybody that would take all legal steps and all mass action to make sure that we get to the end of that particular criminal act. So as we resume, because we understand that the University of Lagos students now, everybody is gearing up for resumption. We want to use this medium to assure Akokites, and by extension all Nigerian students, that no stones shall be left unturned to force the present regime of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to respect the rights of students to affordable education. That's to start with. To also add that we would also not sit back and watch managements, and in particular the University of Lagos management in this specific case, trample on the rights of students while they are answering to their master in Aso Rock. We shall take all steps that are necessary within the ambit of the law to stop this crime against humanity. And so here are some of the next line of actions. Number one, the referendum still continues. We employ all students to pick up that link, fill the survey, because we need more robust data as we continue to engage the management of the University of Lagos, led by Professor Folashade Ogunshola. As we resume, we are calling for a physical congress, and the dates will be announced upon resumption. The reason we are not announcing it now is that we are not sure that students will actually be resuming on the 30th of October. There are two things: the inefficiency from the management, because they themselves are not sure that academic activities will resume, and the fact that students are not going to resume on campus, because many of all these hostels are also not in good shape to have anybody resume into. So we are not going to announce the dates of the physical congress now. We are waiting and we are watching, all as events, unfold. We are also calling for students to organize more than we are organizing now, so that we can put in place a student union that would represent the interests of the University of Lagos students and not a union that would be pushed around by the management. So we are not under any illusion that the promise of the Vice Chancellor to restore the union at the University of Lagos would come on a platter of, of gold. It's going to come by serious engagement and, resistance as it would be. So we are not expecting a union that the management would write its constitution. It must be written by the students. Also, we are asking the management to rescind on all its anti-poor policies, which includes, first of all, that we are still demanding. Our demand is that fees must actually fall. When we started this struggle, it was not to ask that fees should bend or to fall a bit or to no. It is for it to fall. We are not under an illusion. We are very clear that Nigeria has all the resources to fund free quality, education, even up to higher education. How many are the university students in Nigeria today? They're just 1.7 million. And a budget to cater for 1.7 million students would never cause inflation in this country, would never cause the state to go penniless. A country where senators are buying themselves SUVs of 160 million naira per person, 160 million naira times 500 or 469 persons, is going to cost, that's what's going to cost the treasury of the country. That one, there is no problem. But to fund university education properly, that is when we start hearing different economic jargons. And so that is our own belief. It is our belief that Nigeria has the resources to fund quality education. Whenever government wants to come up with some of their neoliberal policies, they actually come with this excuse of there is no money, it is not sustainable, and many other issues around what they call economic realities. Our first answer to them is that the poor students and their parents are not the ones who caused the economic realities in the first place. So the burden of fixing that economic reality or the responsibility of where you've brought this economy to should not be transferred to these poor people who have been pauperized already by that economic reality. So you do not create a society where there is inequality, there is hardship, there is poverty, and then still transfer, the hardship to these people who are just merely receiving 30,000 naira minimum wage as of today. That is number one. Number two is to say that when the president announced that he was going to remove subsidy, one of the reasons was that when we remove subsidy, the money we are going to save from this removal will be put into education and health. These were the two sectors he mentioned, wanting to sound progressive. That is where we're going to put the money into. Only for us to wake up to find out that the subsidy in education has also been removed. So who is deceiving who? So the money you said you've saved, and you know as a journalist that he also mentioned that in 2 months they've been able to save 1 trillion naira. If I'm not mistaken, 1 trillion naira in 2 months. That means from the time subsidy has been removed to this time, you must have saved close to 5 trillion. How much has ASU been asking for? ASU has been asking for 1.1 trillion naira since 2009. And 1.1 trillion naira, they were not even asking for it at once. They said you can break this into tranches, 220 billion, per year and all of that. But this is a government that claims that they saved 1 trillion naira in just 2 months. So why then don't you just put that money in the right, in the investments that you claim you are going to put it in the first place? That should show you that we are dealing with a government that is infidel, and education is actually not their priority. So the end goal for this government is to privatize education totally. And so when they come up with these arguments, these are the things we bring forward to them. That you said you were going to do this, which is that you're going to take subsidy money and you're going to put it in education, but now you have removed subsidy also from education. So it shows that you are insincere and you are insensitive to the plight of Nigerians. It is not even at this time, school fees should be increased by 600%. The hardship, the inflation and everything. And whenever, and that's one thing Nigerians must understand, Whenever fees are inflated or are hiked on campuses, every other thing on campus goes up because the average cab driver would also he has his own wards, his own children in University of Lagos too. Our lecturers also they have their children in the school. How much is the lecturer earning? The highest paid professor in Nigeria today takes home 406,000 naira. 406,000 naira. The highest paid professor who must have read all the books in this world. 406,000. And that professor, if he has 2 or 3 children at the University of Lagos, who are now paying 190,000, 210,000, depending on the department and faculty, how where would he get that money to? And that's just school fees. We're not talking about accommodation. We're not talking about feeding. We're not talking about transportation. We're not talking about projects. So where would they get money to show up these expenses? So these are the issues. And as we are saying this, we are also using this as a medium to reach out to the staff unions too, because it is going to have a ripple effect even on their own employment. It has happened before at LASU in 2013. The lecturers thought they were not, when the fees were hiked from 25,000 to 315,000 for law, another department like that. The lecturers thought they were not concerned until they started receiving letter of, to rescind their employment. Because in a class where you have 50 students before, you now have 20, you have 10. So what would the university do? They will have to send you home too. And that was why they joined the struggle, and the fees were reverted to 25,000 after a year of protest and mass demonstration. So it is also a call to lecturers that you are on the verge of losing your jobs too.